They say when a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. I didn't care. I was broke, jobless, and desperate to get out of my parents' house. So when I found a 2-bedroom apartment for $400 a month in the city, I jumped on it without asking questions. The place was called the Sycamore. Nothing fancy, old bricks, flickering hallway lights, cracked paint. But it was quiet, mostly older residents. And it was mine. The landlord was a tall, thin man in a pressed black suit. No smile, no handshake, just a printed sheet of rules. "Read these carefully," he said. "They are not suggestions." I laughed. "You guys have strict noise policies or something?" He didn't laugh back. "Here's what the rules said. Rule 1. Lock your apartment door by 10:17 p.m. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. Rule 2. Do not speak to anyone in the hallway after midnight. Rule 3. If you hear tapping from the air vents, do not respond. Rule 4. Never use the elevator between 3 o'clock and 3:33 a.m. Rule 5. Do not let anyone into the building after 11:45 p.m., even if they look like a neighbor. Rule 6. Don't look into apartment 3B's peephole. Ever. Weird? Sure. But I figured it was just some creepy landlord power move, a way to scare off troublemakers. I signed and moved in the next day. The first week was uneventful. The place was old but quiet. The neighbors mostly kept to themselves. No parties, no footsteps, no music. Honestly, it felt like I was the only one alive on the floor. Then I forgot the door rule. It was a Thursday night. I'd been up late watching a dumb horror movie. When I checked the time, it was 10:23 p.m. I'd forgotten to lock the door. I cursed and ran to twist the deadbolt shut. I figured it's just 6 minutes late. No big deal. But that night, I woke up to tapping. At first, I thought it was coming from the hallway. Maybe someone knocking on a neighbor's door. But as I sat up and listened, I realized it was coming from the vent above my bed. Tap, tap, tap. Then silence. Then again. Tap, tap, tap. I stared at the vent. There was no wind, no air, just stillness and those 3 soft knocks, spaced perfectly apart. I remembered Rule 3. If you hear tapping from the vents, do not respond. I stayed frozen in bed, barely breathing. I didn't speak. I didn't move. Just stared into the dark and waited. Eventually, the tapping stopped. The next morning, I told myself it was a dream, or maybe an animal in the duct. I went about my day, but something about the hallway felt off, like the building had noticed me now. When I got back from work, there was a note slid under my door. Lock the door. 10:17 exactly. No earlier, no later. This is your only warning. No signature. No handwriting. Just blocky typewriter font. That night, I set an alarm for 10:15 just to be safe. When it rang, I stood by the door with my phone timer in hand. At 10:17 on the dot, I locked it. Nothing happened. No taps. No notes. Just silence. I tried to forget about the warning. Tried to convince myself the landlord was just eccentric. Maybe the tenants were playing a prank. But then I broke the second rule. It was around 12:10 a.m. I'd run out of coffee and decided to check the vending machine down the hall. I didn't think about the rule, not until I saw her. An older woman stood outside apartment 5A, facing the wall. She didn't move, didn't flinch when I passed, just stood there. I offered a polite, "Good evening," as I walked by. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were wide, too wide. No blinking, just a tight smile. "You shouldn't have said that," she whispered. The hallway lights flickered. I stepped back. "Sorry. I didn't mean to." She opened her mouth wider than seemed possible. No scream, no words, just a horrible creaking sound like bending wood. Her jaw twitched. Then suddenly the lights returned. She was gone. I ran back to my unit and locked the door, this time without checking the clock. My hands were shaking. Another note waited for me in the morning. This one was shorter. 2 broken rules. No more mistakes. No signature again. Just the cold font and a smudge of what looked like ash in the corner. I stayed inside for the next few nights. No hallway trips. No unlocked doors. I followed every rule like it was sacred scripture. And it worked for a while. But I was already marked. Because once you break the rules, this place starts playing by its own. Things started changing subtly. The hallway got darker, even during the day. My lights flickered, but only between 10:17 and midnight. The air vents clicked at odd hours, but never when I checked them. And the elevator, it began opening by itself. Always at 3:01 a.m. Always empty. I never used it. Not once. Rule 4 made that clear. But I started hearing sounds inside, a quiet humming, almost like a lullaby sung through clenched teeth. Then came the call. It was 3:16 a.m. I woke up to my phone vibrating on the nightstand. No caller ID. Just the word, basement. I didn't answer. The call ended. 10 seconds later, the elevator dinged. I held my breath. Didn't move. I lay there, frozen in my bed, watching the vent above me for any tapping. Nothing. Then, from down the hallway, a scream. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even human. It sounded like someone pretending to scream, like a bad impression of pain. The next day, I tried to leave the building. I packed a bag, headed down to the lobby, and pushed the front door open. But instead of the city sidewalk, there was my hallway again. Apartment 5C. My door. My floor. I'd looped. I stood in front of my own door, bag still slung over my shoulder, heart pounding. I turned around, hoping maybe it was a trick, an illusion. Behind me, the same hallway again. My feet echoed. My breath quickened. The lights above flickered once, then stayed off. I walked the hallway for hours. No exit. No stairs. Just door after door after door. Some had peepholes. Some were boarded shut. One had deep scratch marks all around the frame, like something had tried to claw its way in. Or out. Eventually, I gave up and returned to my apartment. That night, I stared at my ceiling for hours. At exactly 10:17 p.m., I locked my door. But I heard the handle rattle minutes later. Someone was on the other side. They didn't knock. They didn't speak. Just held the handle, twisting it back and forth slowly. Testing it. After 2 minutes, it stopped. I pressed my eye to the peephole. I shouldn't have. Across the hall, the door to 3B stood wide open. Rule 6. Never look into 3B's peephole. I hadn't broken it, not yet. But my curiosity burned. I stepped out, heartbeat like a drum in my ears. The hallway was dead silent. My bare feet padded across the cold floor as I approached apartment 3B. The door was still open, just a crack. Inside, it was pitch black. Not a single sound. No furniture, no smell, no light. I reached for the peephole, ignoring every part of my brain screaming not to. When I looked through it, I saw myself, standing in my own apartment, staring at the front door. But something was wrong. The version of me in that peephole had blood dripping from its nose. Its eyes were blacked out, like someone had burned the sockets with charcoal, and its mouth was wide open in a soundless scream. Then suddenly the other me turned and looked directly at me, as if it knew I was watching. I jumped back, heart racing, the door to 3B slamming shut on its own. I ran back to my unit and locked the door at exactly 10:17. I didn't care if I was early. I needed a wall between me and whatever I'd seen. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I wasn't tired, but because the vent above me was whispering. Not tapping, whispering. And I recognized the voice. It was mine. It whispered things I'd never said aloud. Fears I'd buried. Secrets I'd forgotten. You're still dreaming, it said. No one's coming, it breathed. They never left this place either. I covered the vent with a blanket and stuffed towels underneath. Still, I could hear it, muffled, but there. By morning, I was unraveling. I stopped eating. My windows showed different skies, red, stormy, then black. No sun. No time. Just endless twilight. I tried the elevator. I had to try something. I waited until 3:34 a.m. Safe, according to the rules. It dinged open, empty. The light inside flickered violently, buzzing like bees. I stepped in, pressed L for lobby, and held my breath. The doors closed. Then the elevator didn't move. Instead, a voice from the speaker crackled through. Wrong. The lights went out. I slammed the open door button, screaming, pounding on the walls. After what felt like hours, the doors slid open, and I was back on my floor. Only this time, none of the doors had numbers. My key didn't fit in any lock. The hallway stretched longer than before. The lights didn't flicker, they stayed dead. And in the darkness ahead, something was walking toward me on all fours. It moved wrong, like its joints bent the wrong way. Fast but twitching. Crawling, then standing, then crawling again. I turned and ran door to door, jamming my key into every lock. Nothing fit. Nothing opened. The hallway just kept going. Behind me, its breathing got louder. Wet. Animal-like. Then one door opened, my door. I dove inside and slammed it shut, locking it on instinct. The moment the deadbolt clicked, silence. I collapsed on the floor, drenched in sweat. I lay there for hours, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. When I woke, the hallway was back to normal. My door had its number again. My window showed a normal sky. The elevator was quiet. The rules were taped to the fridge, as if nothing had happened. But something had changed. Now the rules were different. They'd been updated. Rule 1. Lock the door at 10:17 p.m., no exceptions. Rule 2. Do not speak to reflections that blink out of sync. Rule 3. If the hallway smells like sulfur, stay in bed. Rule 4. Cover the vents after 2 broken rules. Rule 5. Do not speak to your other self if he visits. Rule 6. Never attempt to leave. You are not ready. And one final rule, handwritten in red ink at the bottom. You live here now. I haven't tried to escape again. I follow the rules. I count my breaths. I watch the vents. And at night, I whisper back, just in case the voice is still mine. The thing in the hallway was closing in, its body folding and snapping with every lunge. It didn't make sounds, not really. Just the dragging of skin and bone on tile. I ducked into my apartment just in time. The second I locked the door, a thud hit it from the other side. Not loud, but heavy, like someone had thrown a sack of meat against it, and then waited. I didn't sleep that night. I sat curled against the far wall, knife in hand, watching the doorknob until morning. By morning, the hallway looked normal again. Carpet clean. Light steady. No trace of what had chased me. But something new had appeared. A mirror hung on my wall. I didn't own a mirror. It was oval-shaped, antique-looking, with a dark brass frame, positioned directly across from my bed. When I looked into it, my reflection smiled before I did. I covered it with a blanket. It bled through. My reflection wouldn't stop smiling. I ripped the blanket off the mirror, determined to smash it. But my reflection moved on its own, raising a hand slowly, pressing its palm against the inside of the glass. Then it mouthed, "Let me out." I stumbled back. The mirror didn't shatter when I struck it. The glass rippled like water. A note appeared beneath it, stuck to the wall with a rusted nail. "Do not cover the mirror. You've added a new rule." I hadn't even touched the frame. New rule. That terrified me more than anything. Until now, I'd been following someone else's list, someone who understood the horror baked into this building. But now the building was updating its rules for me. Custom rules. I spent the day documenting everything. Mirror, vent, elevator, notes, even the temperature changes. I needed patterns, logic, anything. But the rules weren't logical. They were watching me, and they were personal now. That night, I stared into the mirror again. I had to know if it would react. My reflection stood perfectly still, though I was breathing hard. Then slowly, it reached behind its back and lifted something into view. My phone. It was displaying a timer, counting down from 3:33. I checked the real phone in my hand. No timer, no alarm, just silence. But the mirror me, it was watching the countdown. The countdown hit 0. The mirror went black. Not like the light faded. It was just gone, a void in the shape of a mirror, swallowing my reflection completely. I waved my hand in front of it. Nothing. Then a knock came from inside the glass. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat had locked shut. The surface began to crack from the inside. Thin, jagged lines spreading like veins. I backed into the corner, unable to look away. The cracks pulsed faintly with light, not white, not yellow. Something colder. Wrong. Then a second knock, louder this time, echoed from the hallway. I checked the clock. 12:03 a.m. Rule number 2. Do not speak to anyone in the hallway after midnight. The knock came again. Softer this time. More. Human. A voice followed. It was mine. Please let me in. I'm locked out. I crept toward the peephole, heart thundering. Outside, I saw myself. Same clothes. Same posture. Same panicked expression I wore a few nights ago. But his eyes were wrong. Too wide. Too glassy. And he wasn't blinking. I don't know what happened, he whispered. You have to let me in. I didn't speak. His smile twitched. You broke the rules. Not me. Then his face dropped, not in fear, but like gravity yanked it off his skull. And he kept smiling. I stepped back from the door, trembling. My double stayed at the peephole, unmoving. Then something else started happening. From under the doorframe, a liquid began to seep in. Black, thick, and slow-moving like oil mixed with ash. It crept toward my feet. I shoved a towel under the door to block it, but the towel hissed when the liquid touched it, turning gray, then brittle, like it was being aged 100 years in seconds. The black liquid retreated, almost like it was alive, pulling back when I touched it, but still threatening. I grabbed my phone and opened a flashlight app. The beam pierced the dark, but the liquid absorbed the light, leaving the area around the door pitch black. I felt trapped. I remembered the old landlord's words. These rules keep you safe. But safe from what? Outside, the reflection smiled wider. It whispered, you broke the rules. Ready for segment 19? Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time was meaningless here. I stopped keeping track. The mirror remained. The black liquid appeared every night, and my reflection became my only company. I started hearing voices through the vents again, whispering secrets I didn't want to know. One phrase repeated over and over. You can never leave. Sleep abandoned me. Hunger faded. I was becoming part of the building. Then a knock, not at the door this time, but from inside the mirror. Soft. Measured. I turned slowly. The mirror had changed again. No longer cracked, no longer dark. It showed my bedroom, but empty. No furniture. No light. Just walls. And a shape. Small at first. Crawling toward the glass. I stepped closer. The shape stood up. It was me, not a reflection this time, but another version, eyes black, mouth open far too wide. The mirror version of me pressed its hand to the glass again. This time, the skin bubbled like boiling water. It whispered, let me in. I know the way out. I backed away. No, I said aloud, my voice dry from disuse. It grinned. Then I'll let something else in. Suddenly, every light in my apartment flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the mirror remained lit, casting my apartment in a sick, blue glow. Something behind me breathed. I turned slowly. Nothing was there, at first. Then, from the corner of the ceiling, something unfolded. A body, pale and wet, hanging upside down like a twisted insect. It crawled silently across the ceiling, joints bending backward, head swiveling unnaturally to face me. Its mouth opened slowly, revealing no teeth, just a black pit and rows of whispering tongues. It wasn't looking for food. It was looking for a voice to steal. Mine. I ran for the bathroom and slammed the door behind me, flipping the light on. It worked. The thing stopped at the threshold, hissing as if the glow burned it. It shrank into the shadows, folding into itself like smoke. The rules never said anything about the bathroom. Was it safe? I locked the door, heart hammering, and stared at my reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror. It blinked before I did. Then it whispered, "You're not supposed to be alive." I tore the mirror from the wall and smashed it against the sink. It didn't shatter. The reflection grinned wider, eyes filling with static. Then the voice came back, from inside the vent above the shower. "Only one way out," it rasped. "Only one way in." The tiles began to peel. Water turned black. My reflection blinked out, and in its place a message appeared, written backward across the glass. "Open apartment 3B." The one rule I hadn't dared break. I swore I never would. The rule was simple: never look through 3B's peephole. But now I had to open it. The hallway stretched endlessly as I approached. The door to 3B was swollen, pulsing faintly. Something inside breathed in rhythm with me. No sound, no light, just dread. I raised a shaking hand to the doorknob. A voice whispered behind me, my own. "If you open it, you take its place." But I was already turning the handle. The door opened. Inside was nothing. Not darkness, a total absence of reality. No air, no sound, just a void. And yet I felt something notice me. It slid beneath my skin. It knew my name. It had always known. Behind me, the door to my apartment slammed shut. Locks clicked. My reflection, my double, stepped out, smiling, wearing my face. He turned and walked away into my life. I screamed into the void. No one heard me, because now I live in apartment 3B. Forever.